You're on mute, say.
Apologies for that. I wasn't. I thought I was audible all along. Just confirm. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a quick. Let's have. Let me maybe quickly run through what I just said. Um.
Okay.
So I was explaining that we had introduced the earnings per share IAS 33. So for earnings per share, this is in the case where you have invested in a company in the form of ordinary shares. So if you invest in ordinary shares, you are not entitled to a fixed dividend like preference shares. So your earnings can vary. So as an investor, you might want to understand first those that have invested, how much were they earning from the shares that they've invested? Is the earnings per share increasing or is actually falling? How is the earnings per share for the company before you've invested your money as well? So the earnings I also mentioned this. If you're talking about the earnings, is what you remain with after you've paid for all the expenses and also preference dividend. So the earnings is not just the profit, but it should be the profit after we have made all the expenses and also the preference dividend. So the earnings per share, there is the basic earnings per share, which is the earnings over the number of ordinary shares. So this is provided we have not had any issue of shares during the year. We can simply say the earnings over the number of ordinary shares. Then we get our earnings per share. But if the company is to issue shares during the year, then the case is going to be a bit different. So if the shares are to be issued during the year, they affect the calculation of earnings per share. Instead of saying earnings over number of ordinary shares, if there were new shares issued in that particular year, our earnings per share would be earnings over weighted number of ordinary shares. So that's the part now that I was getting into. So I had mentioned that if an issue of share is made during the year, it affects the earnings per share calculation. So KD Limited has a year ending. I was now giving an example to illustrate this. Has a year ending, we can say 31 December. Apologies. Hopefully my voice is clear that side. I'm not feeling well today. So hopefully I am audible enough. So let's move. KD Limited has a year ending 31 December 2020. Um, so the year end is 31 December 2020. So we want to come up with a case where we issue the shares during the year. During the year, during the year, the company issued. The company issued. You can say the company issued 100,000 ordinary shares. The company issued 100,000 ordinary shares at a full market price of $5 per share. Full market price of $5 per share on 1 July 2020. Then we can be told that at the start of the year, the company had We issued 100,000. Let's say at 500,000 shares. At the start of the year, the company had 500,000 shares. And during the year, the profit after tax and preference dividend. The profit after tax and preference dividend was, can say the profit after tax and preference dividend, let's just put it at 40,000. Profit after tax and preference dividend, let's put it at 40,000. Then the question, or since our let's increase it a bit. The number of shares is 500,000. Let's just say the profit after tax and preference dividend is 120,000. The profit after tax and preference dividend, we can put it at 120,000. Okay, then the question says, what is the earnings per share? For the year 2020. The earnings per share that you're going to report for the year 2020. So the earnings per share is going to be affected by the fact that the earnings per share is going to be affected by the fact that we issued more shares during the year. So if there were no new issue, if there wasn't any issue which was met, it was easy. You would just say 120,000 over the shares that we had. So now the company issued 100,000 more shares during the year, and this issue, take note, it's at full market price. So that item at full market price, it makes it different if the question had said this is a rights issue or it's a bonus issue. So if an issue is made at full market price during the year, how does it affect our earnings per share? So our earnings per share is going to be our earnings. In this case, we have earnings, but our shares, there were changes in the number of shares. So we come up with what we call the weighted average number of shares. So our earnings per share, we say the earnings over weighted average number of shares. So the earnings is easy. We are given the earnings, it's 120,000. So for our earnings, we are given 120,000. Then the weighted average number of shares now, this is where we have to work out. So weighted average number of shares. The weighted average number of shares, we are going to, please take note of how I'm going to calculate this. So for the weighted average number of shares, we are saying in the year 2020, from January up to July, or we can say up to the end of June. So from January to June, the shares were 500,000. But from July, we increased the number of shares. So from July to December, the shares were now 600,000. Because we increased the shares by 100,000. So from January to June, the shares were 500,000. From July to December, they were now 600,000. So you are going to say the shares were 500,000 for how long? During this year, they were 500,000 for how long? They were 500,000 for 6 months, over 12 months. Then there were 600,000 for how long? There were 600,000 for 6 months, over 12 months. So you are going to multiply. So for the first 6 months, the shares were 500. So they were 500 for 6 months out of 12 months. Then there were 600,000 for the rest of the 6 months. So please take note of the calculation that I did there. So it means the weighted average number of shares. For the year, it is 550. So the weighted average number of shares is 550. Then what becomes our EPS? So our earnings per share becomes the earnings, which is 120,000, over our weighted average number of shares, which is 550,000. So remember, this is given in cents. So you can multiply by 100. Why multiplying by 100? I want to put this in cents. So that's 120, 120 over 550. 120 over 550. This would be, if I multiply by 100, I'm just putting it in cents. Remember, the earnings per share is in cents. So it's 21.8 cents. So our earnings per share is 21.8 cents. So take note, I had to work out the weighted average number of shares. I did not simply, don't assume, we don't just add the shares that we issued during the year. These shares were issued during the year. These shares were issued halfway through the year. So they don't have the same right to dividend as those that were issued at the start of the year. Okay, now let's move on. My team that's practicing, I hope you are using the practice platform and the Excel for practice, because in the exam you will be using this thing. So avoid using pen and paper, using yes, pen and paper, because your exams are computer based. So practice you typing on the computer so that you get used to some of these functions, because you might fail, not because the exam was difficult, but you can take a lot of time trying to navigate and understand where should I get the addition sign, where should I get the multiplication sign. So please take note of that. Okay, let's move on. So that was the first case where there is an issue which has been made at full market price. So I would want to call this one case two. So case two is now where we have made a bonus issue. So remember, when we make a bonus issue or a script issue, bonus issue. So if there is a bonus issue or a script issue, it means the shares are issued for free to existing shareholders. We are issuing the shares for free to existing shareholders. So the shares are issued for free to existing shareholders. So if it's a bonus issue, the shares are being issued for free to existing shareholders. So what's the implication of issuing these shares for free to existing shareholders on IAS 33? So the key takeaway is that the bonus issue is assumed to have taken place at the start of the year. The bonus issue is assumed to have taken place at the start of the year. Meaning what? Even if it was in July, there is no need for us to apportion. All right, just a moment. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. Let's proceed. Sorry for that disturbance. So I was saying that if we have a bonus issue, uh, the bonus issue is assumed to have taken place at the start of the year. So regardless of it maybe have been made in November. So the assumption is that it was done at the start of the year. So we are not going to adjust in the same way that we have done for an issue at full market price. So it means if we are dealing with the question, like if we are dealing with the issue above, if this was a bonus issue, we would assume that this 100,000 was issued at the start of the year. So it would be 500 plus the 100,000. So the EPS, it would simply be the earnings divided by the total number of shares. But there can come a case where there was a rights issue and there was a bonus issue and there was an issue at full market price. So that can end up becoming too much of information. So the technique that you're supposed to use is, okay, we can say if the bonus issue was made together with other issues, if the bonus issue was made together with other issues, all the issues before, all the shares rather, before the bonus issue are multiplied with the bonus fraction. With the bonus fraction. So let me maybe give clarity to this. So an example would do. So we can have a case like this one. A company, a company issued, or we can say a company had 100,000 shares in issue, 100,000 ordinary shares, ordinary shares in issue on 1 January 2020. So this company had 100,000 ordinary shares in issue on January 2020. They decided to issue a company further issued 20,000 shares at full market price. Further issued 20,000 shares at full market price on 1 April 2020. Full market price, 1 April 2020. This was then followed by a bonus issue. This was then followed by a bonus issue of 1 for every 6 shares. One for every 6 shares held. What else can we add to that? So this was then followed by a bonus issue of 1 for every 6 shares held. Then on, and say on 1, so this is now said January, then 1 April. Okay, this was then followed by a bonus issue. We need to give a bit. So we can say this was followed by a bonus issue on 1 August 2020. So after the bonus issue, we can say another issue was made. Was made at full market price. Another issue was made at full market price on 1 October 2020 of, you can say, of 30,000 shares. Of 30,000 shares. Then during the year 2020, the earnings made amounted to 20,000. What is the earnings per share for 2020? So what's happening here? The company had 10,000 shares, 100,000 rather, at the start of the year. Then they made an issue at full market price. Then a bonus issue. Then after that, they made an issue at full market price, then a bonus issue. Then after the bonus issue, they again made another issue. So this is a complicated case I was trying to bring out, where we have made a bonus issue together with an issue at full market price. If it was just a bonus issue, it's not any problem. If it was only a bonus issue, like in the case above, I said if it was just a bonus issue, we would assume the 100,000 shares were issued at the start of the year. So earnings per share, you would simply say 120 over 600,000, then you're done. But if there are issues, if there are quite a number of issues, like in this case, this is how we will work it out. So we said if the bonus issue was made together with other issues, all the shares before the bonus is supposed to be before the bonus. All the shares before the bonus issue are multiplied with the bonus fraction. All the shares before the bonus issue are multiplied with the bonus fraction. So we have the shares from January. I want us to calculate the weighted average number of shares. The earnings is not a problem we are given, but the weighted average number of shares. So weighted average number of shares in this kind of a scenario, the approach that I prefer the most is we just say from January up to when did we issue the next issue? It took place in April. So it means January, February, March. So January to March, the company had, so from January to March, the company had 100,000 shares. Then from then, March, April, let me just, so from April, the next issue is the bonus issue in August. So it means from March, we said April, May, June, April, May, June, July. So it's April to July. Then from August, our shares changed as well. So it's August up to October, August, September, October. So it's August and September. Then from October to December. These are the breakout points. So from January to March, the shares were 100,000. From April, they were increased. We issued 20,000. We issued 20,000, meaning the shares were now 120. So if we started with 100, so it means from April, the shares were now 120. Then August, we made a bonus issue. And our bonus issue was 146. So we are saying of the shares that are there, we are giving them 1 for every 6. So what's 1 over 6? Of now we have 120,000 shares. So we're giving them 1 for every 6. That's 1 over 6. So it means we gave them another 20,000 shares. So the bonus issue was 1 for every 6. So 1 for every 6 is not number of shares. So you can work aside the number of shares. It's 20,000. So it means that now from August, the shares will be 140,000. Why? Because we increased the number of shares. We increased the number of shares in August, but this one is a bonus issue. Maybe let me indicate this one is a bonus issue. It's not an issue at full market price. Then lastly, from October to December, we added 30 more shares. So from 140, was it 30? Yes, 30,000. So from 140, if you add 30, that's 170,000. Then remember, from January to March, this is January, February, March, is 3 over 12. So 3 over 12, so we say 3 over 12 times the, so we are saying 3 over 12. Oh, let me. So we're saying 3 over 12 times the 100,000. Oops. This is what I was talking about. If this happens in the exam, it will be a disaster. 3 over 12 times 100,000. You need to be well versed with the system. Then from April to July, April, May, June, July. April, May, June, July. It's 4 months. From my calculation, that's 4 over 12. So 4 over 12 of the months It was 120,000. Then let me move to the next. Just a moment. Okay, let's proceed. Sorry for that disturbance. So from August to September, it's August, September, it's 2 months. So the shares were 140 for 2 months. Then October, November, December, those 3 months. October, November, December. So for the last 3 months, 3 over 12, they were 170. But all the shares before the bonus issue, the statement here, the bonus issue was made together with other issues. All shares before the bonus issue are multiplied with the bonus fraction. So we need what we call the bonus fraction. And all the shares before the bonus issue, that's for the January and the April, January to March, April to July, they are multiplied with the bonus fraction. And how do you get the bonus fraction? So the bonus fraction, you say 1 plus, so you just add 1 or 2. If the shares were being issued 1 for every 6, which is 1 over 6. So you add 1 whole to that. So you're just taking 1 over 6, then you add plus 1. So if you say 1 over 6 plus 1, that would be what? If you 1 over 6 plus 1, that would be, so it's 1 whole and 1 over 6, which is 6 times 1, 6 plus, that would be 7 over 6. So you're taking 1 over 6, that is the bonus. You're saying 1 for every 6, that's 1 over 6. Then you add 1 whole to that. So if you add 1 whole to 1 over 6, it becomes 7 over 6. That's our bonus fraction. Let me remove the equals here. So that's our bonus fraction. So all the shares before the bonus issue, we multiply by 7 over 6. So this one, before the bonus issue, we multiply by 7 over 6. The shares before the bonus issue, we multiply by 7 over 6. All the shares before the bonus issue. This one, it's not before the bonus issue. This one is not before the bonus. So the shares before the bonus issue, we are multiplying them with the bonus fraction. Only the shares before. Then you add, that's your weighted average number of shares. So that's the weighted average number of shares. So our EPS, so our EPS would say the earnings, I think it was 220,000 over So times 100 to make, for the sake of our cents. So we're saying 220,000 over 1, we can simply say over this one. So our earnings per share would be 150.5 cents. So our earnings would be 150.5 cents. So the key issue here is the shares before the bonus issue, they are multiplied by the bonus fraction. If the bonus issue was 1 for every 5, the bonus fraction would be, you just add 1 word to that. So the bonus fraction would be 6 over 5. Because if you add 1 whole to 1 over 5, it becomes 1 whole, 1 and 1 over 5, which is the same as 6 over 5. So all the shares before the bonus issue, they are multiplied with the bonus fraction. Now, let's move on. Besides the bonus issue, we can also have the rights issue. We can also have the rights issue. So if it's the rights issue, remember, this is when shares are issued to existing shareholders, but at a price below the market price. So the rights issue, this is when shares are issued to existing shareholders at a price below the market price. So for others, we are selling at a higher price, but existing shareholders, we sell at a price below the market price. So the issue is not about the rights issue that we're discussing, but we want to look at the earnings per share. How does it affect the earnings per share? If we have made a rights issue, how does it affect the earnings per share? So for a rights issue, the reduction in price, because we are reducing the price for the existing shareholders. So the reduction in price gives rise to, so if we reduce the price, it gives rise to the bonus element. It gives rise to the bonus element. So let's say the shares were being sold at $5. So if we are to sell the shares, these shares were going for, let's say, $5. So it means for 1,000 shares, we would expect to get, for 1,000 shares, if it's at $5, we'd expect to get 5,000. And the bonus issue is reduced the shares to $4. It means for the same 1,000 shares, we are going to get 4,000. So in other words, what can we say about this? So this is the same as we sold. This is the same, because for, let me check, for 400, if the price for each share, normal price was $5. So it means for 4,000, we would expect to get 4,000 from, if we divide by 5, we would expect to get 4,000 from 800 shares. So this is the same as we sold 800 shares at normal price and gave away 200 shares for free. So if there's a rights issue, we've reduced the price, but it's the same as we have given them some shares for free, because it means we are getting 4,000 from 1,000 shares. So it means 800 shares have been sold at full market price, because if we sell 800 at $4 at normal price, sorry, you'll get 4,000. So it means the remaining 200, these ones, they've been given for free. They've not given us any, we have not received any money from them. So in a rights issue, there is the bonus element. So there's a statement here, the reduction in price gives rise to the bonus element. So there are steps that we are going to go through. If it's a rights issue, there are steps that we have to go through. Steps to go through when dealing with the rights issue. So if it's a rights issue, there are a number of steps that you have to go through. The first step, you need to calculate what we call the theoretical ex-rise price. Calculate the theoretical ex-rise. Theoretical ex-rise price. So the first step is to come up with a theoretical ex-rise price. So the theoretical ex-rise price, how do you get this one? Let me give an example. So the company made a rights issue. The company made a rights issue of 1 for every 5 shares. The company made a rights issue of 1 for every 5 shares. At $8 each. At $8 each. The market price for these shares is $10 each. The market price for these shares is $10 each. What is the theoretical ex-rise price? Calculate the theoretical ex-rise price. So they can abbreviate it, the theoretical ex-rise price. So the theoretical ex-rise price, how do we calculate the theoretical ex-rise price? The theoretical ex-rise price, we are going to say the average price. we can say the total price over total number of shares. Total price over total shares. So the theoretical X-rise price, in other terms, it's more like it's the average price. So if you're calculating the theoretical X-rise price, you need the total price. So you're saying 1 for every 5 shares, 1 for every 5 shares at $8. So it means for someone who had 5 shares, they are being given 1 share at $8. If you have 5 shares, they're giving you 1 at $8. So in total, let's look at one person who had 5 shares. So it means for the 5 shares that they had paid the full market price. So for the 5 shares, they would say 5 times 10 for the first shares that they bought. Then they are given 1 share at $8. So for someone who had 5 shares, they are being given 1 share at a reduced price. In total, now they have 6 shares. And how much did they pay in total? They have paid 58. How much do they have in total? They have 6 shares. So the theoretical X-rise price is then going to be the total price they paid, 58, over number of shares, 6. So what would that give us? 58 over 6. So that's 9.7. So 9.7 is our theoretical X-rise price. Is our theoretical X-rise price. Then step number 2, after you've calculated your theoretical X-rise price, after your theoretical X-rise price, you need to then calculate the bonus fraction. Remember, we said for a rights issue, there is the bonus fraction. So how do you calculate the bonus fraction this time around? So for the bonus fraction, so the bonus fraction, we say the market price, the full market price, full market price over theoretical X-rise price. So the bonus fraction becomes the full market price was $10. The shares were going for $10, but the theoretical X-rise price is 9.7. So this becomes our bonus fraction. So the bonus fraction is the full market price over the theoretical X-rise price. Then the next step is to then work out the weighted average number of shares. Weighted average number of shares. The weighted average number of shares. That's the third step. So remember, for the bonus issue, I said the bonus fraction is multiplied by all the shares before the bonus issue. The same goes with the rights issue. The bonus fraction for the rights issue is multiplied with all the shares before the rights issue. So we can say the bonus fraction is multiplied by all the number of shares for the issue. The bonus fraction is multiplied by the number of shares before the issue. Then the last step is then calculating our EPS. So let's have an example to demonstrate this. ABC Limited. ABC Limited made a rights issue. ABC Limited made a rights issue of 2 shares. Made a rights issue of 2 shares for every 4 shares held. Made a rights issue of 2 shares for every 4 shares held at $5. The full market price of these shares was $7. The full market price of these shares was $7. The issue was made on 1 July 2020. The issue was made on 1 July 2020. And the following additional information was given. The following additional information is provided. So with the earnings for the year 2019, 450, we have the earnings 500,000. So besides the earnings, we have the number of ordinary shares. So the number of ordinary shares 2019 is 800,000. This side we have 1.2. What is the earnings per share for the year 2019 and 2020? So we want to work out the earnings per share for these 2 years. So the earnings per share for the first year, the earnings per share for the first year, 2019, we are simply looking at the earnings for 2019 over the number of shares. The bonus issue was not made in 2019. So if there was no issue made in 2019, then we are not going to have any issues there. So it means our earnings per share for 2019 would say 450,000 divided by the number of shares, 800,000. So that's 450,000 over 800,000. So the earnings per share would be 56.25 cents. So that one is not an issue. So for the first one, it's not an issue. Why? Because there was nothing, there was no issue for 2019, neither we don't have any bonus issue or a rights issue or even not an issue at full market price. So the rights issue took place in the year 2020. So it is in that year that we are going to effect the calculations I was giving you. So for the year 2020 now, so affecting the bonus issue. So for the year 2020, we want to effect the bonus issue. Affecting the bonus issue. So the first step, not bonus issue, it's a rights issues. We want to look at the effect of the rights issue. Step one is to work out our theoretical, our theoretical X-rise price. So the theoretical X-rise price, we said, is the average price. So it's one for every, it's two for every four. So it means if someone has 4 shares, they're being given 2. So the first 4 shares that they have, they bought them at full market price. So the first 4 shares, they are at the full market price was $7. So it would be 4 times 7. Then the other 2 shares, they are being given at a reduced price. $5. 2 times 5, that would be 10. So overall, that would be 38. 4 plus 2, it means that would be 6 shares. So our theoretical X-rise price So for our theoretical X-rise price, we'd say 38 divided by 6. Or that's 38 over 6. So our theoretical X-rise price, it would be 38 divided by 6 or 38 over 6. Then from there, we have the bonus fraction. We need to determine the bonus fraction. So for the bonus fraction, I said you are taking the full market price divided by a theoretical X-rise price. After the bonus fraction, you then weigh out your weighted average number of shares. Weighted average number of shares. Weighted average number of shares. So your weighted average number of shares, how do you work this one out? Your weighted average number of shares, you look at the changes. So we have January. We have up to what? The company made the rights issue when um, the rights issue was made 1 July. So meaning from January to July, there were no changes. To June, in fact. So from January to June, the shares were the same as the ones we started with. So the shares were still 800,000. Then from July to December, the shares increased by what? There was a 2 for 4 sky, that's 2 over 4 times 800,000. That's 400,000. So it means the shares increased from 800,000 to 1,200. What? Because 1,200,000. Because if you add 400 to 800,000, it would be 1.2. So confirming the 1.2 on the question. Then the shares were 800,000 for the first 6 months. So you're saying 6 over 12. 6 over 12 times 800,000. The shares were 120 again for 6 over 12. But the shares before the rights issue, we multiply these with the bonus fraction. So before the rights issue, we multiply this with the bonus fraction. So that would be 7 over 6,3. Then these ones, they are not before, so they are not affected. So it's only the shares before the bonus issue, before the rights issue affected by the bonus fraction. The same goes for the bonus issue. Before the issue, we multiply those shares with the fraction. So the weighted average number of shares the weighted average number of shares is equal to that. That's our weighted average number of shares. Then what about our earnings per share? So our earnings per share, we then say the earnings. $50,000 divided by the weighted average number of shares. So in sense, that's 47,9 cents. 47,9 cents. So that is how we account for the rights issue. So just remember, for a rights issue, there is the element of a bonus. So in a rights issue, there's an element of a bonus. So let's move on. Let's move on. Diluted earnings per share. Diluted earnings per share. So diluted earnings per share. If we are dealing with diluted earnings per share, if you still remember convertible instruments, IFRS 9. So for convertible instruments, these can give the holder the right to convert them into shares. So when they convert them into shares, this tends to dilute the earnings of the business. So diluted earnings per share, we are looking at the effect, provided that those, let's assume those shares have, those, if it was a loan, that loan has now been converted into shares. What impact does it have on the earnings per share? So the diluted earnings per share, we can say this looks at the effect of the contracts that the entity entered into that have a dilutive effect, on the future dividend. So the company has entered into contracts which are capable of diluting the future dividend. So we want to look at how is the earnings going to be affected, provided that these people have chosen to convert their instruments into shares. How is it going to affect our earnings? So the diluted earnings per share, the diluted earnings per share is equals to the earnings, is the earnings plus the notional extra earnings over the number of shares plus notional extra share. What do we mean by notional? Oh, sorry. So by notional, so we're saying for diluted earnings per share, it's still earnings of a number of shares, but there is now the notional. So let's start with the notional extra earnings. So for the notional extra earnings, these are the additional earnings the company is going to get. If someone is to convert their instrument into shares, we can benefit. We have a benefit that we have. What benefit? The benefit is that we are no longer going to be paying them interest, because if it's still a loan, we'll be paying them interest on that loan. But now if we convert it into shares, it means our expenses have now been reduced. That interest we were charged is no longer being charged. So there is a benefit to our earnings of converting those instruments into shares. So the notional extra earnings, these are the benefits of the conversion, such as the finance cost saved. So there are benefits we are going to enjoy, such as we are going to save the finance cost. The finance costs saved. Finance costs saved. Okay, let's move on. So the notional extra earnings, these are the benefits of the conversion, such as the finance cost saved. Then the notional extra shares. So these are the extra shares that are arising as a result of the conversion. So if they convert they convert their instrument into shares, it will result in more shares to the entity. So the notional extra, these are additional shares arising from the conversion. So if they are to convert, it will increase the number of shares. Now let's move and look at an example. KD Limited. Just a moment, let me respond. Okay, let's proceed. So KD Limited has 5,000. KD Limited is 5,000, 10% convertible loan stock. 5,000, 10% convertible loan stock. If the holder of these instruments of these instruments if the holder of these instruments decides to convert them decides to convert them into shares. If the holder of these instruments decide to convert them into shares, they can convert them they can convert them I think for this one, let me get a question. Let me look for a question, a quick one. Let's attempt question 124. You can take a pick. But this one you can try it after. Let me look for. There's a type of a question that I'm looking for, which is a lot of information. Like let me just maybe if I can get it in the study text. So earnings per share 307 for cash flows. Yes, let's look at testing your understanding 5. Can quickly read it. So if possible, you can again take a peek because once I leave the screen, I will need that information. Let me do likewise the side. Okay, let's now read the question together. A company had 8.8 million shares in issue at the start of the year and made no new issue of shares during the year ended 31 December 2024. But on that date, it had an issue of 2.3 convertible loan. The loan still carries an effective interest rate of 10%. Assume an income tax of 30%. The earnings for the year is 2.208. Again, this one, yeah, but I think we can work with this. It's fine. So the loan stock will be converted into dollar ordinary shares as follows. Okay, if it's converted in 20x6, you can get 90 shares. 20x7, 85. So calculate the diluted earnings per share. Now I'm removing this from the screen. Hopefully you've taken pictures. I have done so as well. Okay, so now let's go through the question together. So if you are given a question like this, so there is a convertible loan stock. So the convertible loan stock, so this one, let's remove it. Let's just say we're now using testing your understanding 5. So example, testing your understanding. So that's what we are going to use as the example. So the question is mentioning that the company has 8.28 million shares in issue. So number of shares in issue. Currently, the shares in issue is 8.28 million. And made no new issue of shares. So there was no new issue of shares, okay, during the year ended 31 December. But on that date, it had 2.3 million convertible loan stock. So it is convertible loan stock. Convertible loan stock, 2.3 million. $2.3 million convertible loan stock. What else? The loan stock is an effective rate, interest rate. Effective interest rate of 10%. Then income tax. The income tax is 30%. The earnings. The earnings are 2.208 million. So this is the breakdown of the information that we are given. Then we are told that the convertible loan stock, their nature, remember, you can convert them into shares. So the number of shares we are going to get depends on when we convert them. So if we convert them early, you get more shares. You delay, the number of shares is reducing. As you can see, 2006, you get 90. 2007, 85, 2008, 80, 2009, 75. So the golden rule we always assume the highest number of shares will be converted. And B, we always assume the highest number of shares will be converted. That's the point I wanted to bring out. That's why I left that other question, because it did not give you the table where you have different shares that you can get. So if you convert in 2006, they can get 90, 2007, 85. But the assumption is we assume the highest number of shares will be converted. Meaning that which shares are we dealing with? It means the convertible instrument will be converted to 90 shares. That's what we'll be dealing with, the highest number. So the highest number of shares will be converted. Okay, so what are the steps then? We said the diluted earnings per share. We need the earnings plus the notional extra earnings. So the earnings are there, but how do we get the notional extra earnings? Notional extra earnings. So the notional extra earnings, these are the benefits we are going to get because of converting the instrument into shares. So we were paying finance costs. We were paying finance costs of how much? We're paying finance costs, the interest is 10%. The effective rate of interest is 10% of how much was the loan? It was 2.3 million. So it means the finance cost was something like 230. So if these shares have been converted, we are no longer going to pay this finance cost of 230. But however, any benefit earned is taxed. So the earnings is after we have incorporated all the payments that we have to make. So in this case, yes, we have saved the finance cost, but that benefit is going to be taxed because the finance cost had reduced our tax. Now, if we have reduced the finance cost, it means we are also going to increase the tax burden. So that benefit is taxed. We take the benefit saved times the tax rate. That's why they gave us the tax rate. So what's the net benefit then? So our net benefit becomes, that's 230, that's that. So this one is our notional extra earnings, 161. So now we have the variables, the earnings we have, the notional extra earnings we have. Now the number of shares is given plus the notional. So the notional number of shares. So for the shares, we're saying the notional now extra shares. Let's work out the notional extra shares. So the notional extra shares. So for the notional extra shares, we need to understand how these shares were given. If we go to the question, it was saying the loan stock will be converted into dollar shares as follows. 90 dollar shares for 100. So it means for every $100 of the loan, you are getting 90 shares. For every $100 of the loan, you get 90 shares. So the total shares is not 90. I actually made an error here. The convertible instrument will be converted into 90 shares for $100 loan. For $100 loan stock. So we are saying for every $100 loan, we are getting 90 shares. So using that ratio, if the loan is 2.3, 2,300,000, and for every $100, you are getting 90 shares. So using proportion, if 90 shares gives you If $100 gives you 90 shares, what about 2.3? This gives you more. So you'd say 2.3 over 100 times 90. So it means the total shares will be 207. So these are the shares, the additional shares. So these are the additional shares. How did we work them out? We said that's 2.3 times 90 over 100. Just use proportion. So now what's our diluted earnings per share? Our diluted earnings per share. So for diluted earnings per share, we are then going to say the earnings So for our diluted earnings per share, we'll say the earnings, that's 2. How much was it? 2.02. Check. 2,208,000. So 2,208,000. So this one, it's not it. So 2,208,000 plus the extra 161,000, all divided by, or let me just show the stages. So this would be then all divided by this one plus 8.28. So in sense, that's 22.9. 22.9 cents. Okay, so please make sure you go and practice that. Please do practice that. I'm going to send you a recording on ratios. So ratios, we are not going to spend a lot of time on, or we are not going to spend time on the theoretical aspects. We just look at them maybe in the calculations, but I'll give you the audio. You can go through it. Ratios are simple. It's the same thing that you have been hearing from even part one. So maybe the area that you just need to pay particular attention to is how you comment the ratios. So please, I will send you the recording on that. Please do make use of it so that in the next session, we just start looking at questions. So from now onward, I'll be looking at random questions. It's your duty as well to make sure you practice a lot of questions. So in the next coming session, we are going to look at, I'll just pick any question paper, maybe from the practice platform, then we can do it together. But this, I think there's any need for you to wait for me. For ACCA, you do need to put in the effort that is needed. So I think next week we'll look at, for the weeks that are remaining, I believe it's wise if we can direct our focus to past exam questions so that at least we get a few of the real exam. So for today, I think we can end here. So that's IAS 33. So during the class sessions, for some of the issues, I will be giving you a skeleton. So like the theoretical aspects, I might not cover everything. So you do need to also supplement by reading so that at least you are well equipped for the exam. So I try by all means to give you everything, but you also need to supplement by reading. So for today,